Leviticus 21 to 25. Along the way, Israel is given symbols to enjoy. In fact, the sacrifices themselves were largely symbolic, we realize. And one of the greatest symbols it was given as a nation was called the Day of Atonement. It was practiced, still is in fact, one day per year in the Israelite nation. It has to do with, again, that word atone, which means to cover, the original word, kafar in Hebrew. It also, this day, will celebrate another Hebrew word, nasa, N-A-S-A, which literally means to bear. And let's describe that here. This is in Leviticus 16. Once a year, the high priest, or actually the nation, would celebrate a sin offering and kill a goat, sacrifice a goat, and then they would take a second goat, and the high priest would lay his hands on this goat. That's where this idea of bearing would come into mind. And the goat was symbolizing bearing away the sins of the people. This is called an elimination rite in other ancient societies. We know of one nation around the time of Israel that would do this with rats. They would send them out of the camp with their sins supposedly being borne away. So again, this is a symbol that other nations celebrated as well. But as that goat would be sent out of the camp, interestingly, and this is mentioned in 16 verses 8, 10, and 26, we have the name of a deity that these sins were sent to, figuratively. His name is Azazel. He is named in most of the modern versions of the Bible, most modern translations. Scapegoat is the old King James word that has been put in that place. He is a demon. He's understood in Israelite tradition to be a demon. And a demon is an Elohim who comes down and bothers people, basically, to make it short. We'll talk about demons, of course, in the further story of Israel as we get there. But do you see how this symbol is being played out? That I am, as the high priest, once a year, sending the sins of the nation to another god, saying, you can have them, right? Well, what do we do with this story? What if I was a child and I said to my dad, I can just sin away for a year, right, Dad? Because we're going to send my sins out of the camp. Here's where a good parent would have said, well, we need to separate between symbol and reality. And I think this is always a part of Israelite understanding, that I take the symbol and I realize that does not mean I get to act poorly or take advantage of it in the wrong way. The second thing to remember, and this is big, of course, is what kind of sins were being borne away. We learned back in Leviticus 4 through 15 that these are sins of non-rebellion, sins of inadvertency. So again, touching a carcass, bodily discharges, those kinds of things. This is ritualistic sins that are being sent out. The impurity of the nation is being sent out, not actual like murder or something like that. And thirdly, we need to remember that the main storyline is still in place. In fact, in Leviticus 24:15, it says, whoever curses his God bears, and it uses the same word, bears his guilt. It seems to be a play on this symbol. Yes, we can send our sins away once a year, but if you actually curse your God, if you actually live rebelliously to Yahweh, you might as well forget this whole storyline. It doesn't count for you because you will bear your own sin. So this is a good example, again, the Day of Atonement, where Israel was expected to live out a symbol but remember reality.